Okay, so I'm gonna actually, Sarah, you have this slides up. So just if you want to forward on to Dr. Morgan's section, and we're gonna have Dr. Morgan, the state vet, go ahead and give her update. So Dr. Morgan, just take it away and just say next slide when you're ready for your next slide.
Good morning, everybody. This section is from the state veterinarian's point of view. So I'm just going to give you an update. And of course, I work for the state of Connecticut Regulatory Services. Next, please. So my agenda is to give you an insight of who I am, talk about the flight paths of the wild birds that are causing the issues. Have there been any Connecticut outbreaks? Touch on the biosecurity, which is the main reason for this webinar. Some other topics that may or may not have been thought of in the realm of high path avian influenza. And then the last is not questions, because questions are being held to the end. However, you will have my contact information so that if you want to send me a question, you certainly can. Next. So I'm Dr. Tamis J. Morgan. I went to veterinary school at Tufts. So I am Connecticut homebred and raised. I joined the Department of Agriculture in October of 2024. I am a diplomat of the American College of Veterinary Preventive Medicine, which makes me a specialist in this particular field of herd health and that intersection of One Health of the people, animals, and environment. Next slide. And so our story starts off with the migratory paths. As you can see to the left, you'll see the blue area, that is the Atlantic flyway. So these are the animals that are moving from Canada. You know, they go north to south and south to north twice a year. And these are the animals that are going overhead of us right now and are the cause of our outbreak. Again, high path avian influenza is carried primarily by the waterfowl. I gave you a picture on the left, which shows you the Mediterranean migratory fly path, which gives you the same kind of notice along with a calendar. So their calendar is not much different than ours. From September to February, they're migrating. And then when we're coming into this season now of the spring, where the birds should be where they want to be so that they can nest and reproduce and make more of themselves. So we should be coming to the end of our New England season. Next slide. And so as our story goes, have we had any outbreaks here in Connecticut? Yes, we have. We've had 3 outbreaks, 2 in the New London County and 1 in the New England County. All 3, the protocol is in Connecticut to completely depopulate these flocks to decrease the spread of the avian influenza virus amongst not only backyard, but also again, protect our commercial egg people that are here in Connecticut. We have 2 very large egg producers, and we certainly want to protect them as well as all of our backyard producers. Down at the bottom, you can easily see that there's some folks that are feeding mallards. So yes, humans are part of the problem. Winter is good in New England if the ponds and lakes freeze over, because then the migratory birds will continue to fly. The birds will only rest and feed on open water. And so we have found in some ponds or man-made ponds that folks who put aerators into their ponds to keep them from freezing are actually inviting especially the wild waterfowl to rest in their ponds during the winter time. And so part of the recommendation to those folks who have water on their property is to just go ahead and let it freeze so that the birds can pass over and stay out of residential areas and then feed or rest away from the backyard flocks and our commercial flocks. So over to your right, you'll see that we have 1A where the birds are migrating, 2A where they come down to a pond to rest and feed. Then you'll see in the middle picture where we have some lovely Peking ducks that are mingling with your mallards. This is probably the #1 route of transmission. We have seen that in especially 2 of our 3 outbreaks, that there was direct commingling of domestic ducks with wild ducks, which then infected the rest of the flock. And then, so finishing your picture, you'll see that the chickens or the ducks will go home, infect in 4A, infect the rest of the flock, while then other birds will go back upon the migratory path and then continue going where they're going. And we have seen it. We've had calls of birds absolutely dropping right out of the sky onto the pavement in front of some folks, much to their shock. So it does happen, and it can be pretty traumatic for a person who is not aware that high path avian influenza is being carried by the birds up in the sky. Next slide, please. And so the #1 key is biosecurity, which is the hallmark of this particular. Could they be Rowans? Of course they could be Rowans. My assumption of making them Pekings because they're the only white ducks I know. So apologies to duck specialists out there. Back to our slide. So biosecurity is first and foremost. So the USDA has a great website and a collection of training tools that talk about biosecurity called Defend the Flock. The folks that follow me are going to talk more about the biosecurity. For those backyard folks and others who have, can somebody please let Nathan in? So those who have water on their premises, again, like I have said, we have seen properties that have open water have the tendency to have a higher population of wildfowl rest and feed and possibly commingle with the backyard flocks and others. And so the first would be to take care of keeping your birds away from the wildlife. That's probably the biggest. And then to ensure that you are doing everything possible to make sure that that gap stays as large as possible. So perhaps putting roofing on your pens if your birds have outdoor access, but not free range. We have found that there's problems with free range, to remind that high path avian influenza is spread through the feces and other bodily fluids. And so there you have it. Next slide. And so some other topics. I hope that these slides are going to be shared with our viewers. Each of these topics has an article or a paper that goes along with it that can give you more insight onto the why. You know, why don't we vaccinate? Why don't we do this? And why don't we let birds live out their lives to have an immune response? And again, there's many, all of these topics are controversial. We could spend many hours talking about them. But as you know, we're on a time crunch. On the left-hand side, you'll see a educational facing, public facing page from Defend the Flock, which has a whole lot of information in of itself and is available to anyone and everyone who has internet access. Next slide. And so this is me. I work here in Hartford, Connecticut. That is my phone number. And I would be very patient. If you want an inside hint, email me, which my email address is at the bottom. I am a team of 1, so I cannot use my computer and answer my phone at the same time. So please be patient with me. The Department of Agriculture is quite small for the state of Connecticut. However, we are here to protect all of you and your animals. And so we absolutely appreciate your cooperation, but we do welcome your questions and observations. Thank you very much for letting me join you. Have a
Thank
great
you so
day.
much, Dr. Morgan. And yes, the slides will be shared afterwards, along with a lot of the links and useful resources and fact sheets. So if you can move to the next slide, Sarah, we're going to have Dr. Rosati from UConn CVMDL give his update right now. So Dr. Rosati, if you want to take it away and unmute yourself.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Guillermo Risari. I'm with the Department of Pathobiology and Veterinary Science at UConn, University of Connecticut, in the Storrs campus. I'm happy to be the director of the Connecticut Veterinary Medical Diagnostic Lab. And what I want to share with you, we're a testing lab. So basically, we receive samples and we process them for several things, but obviously for avian influenza. And what you're going to see from me is 3 slides. Where you can see the data that we have accrued so far since the start of the outbreak in 2022. What you see over here are the number of tests that we perform at CVNDL, at the lab. And you see in blue are the totals of tests of birds. In orange is the number of tests of animals that we basically receive from Connecticut, or samples that we receive from Connecticut. And in green, all the other states in New England. The reason that we have the other states in New England is because we are the only lab of its kind, or basically we are allowed by the USDA to run this test in the entire New England region. So we receive samples not only from Connecticut, but from other states in the area, including New York. So can we move to the next slide? So what you see over here is the number of, we call non-negative samples. Basically, this is the number of detections that we have in the laboratory. The way that we detect this is by a rapid test that is a couple of hours, we can have the results. So we can we're going to be able to report that to them, in this case, to the state vets, because this is a reportable disease. This is federally mandated, and the state of Connecticut and other states in the region mandate the same thing. So this is the number of positive samples, with a number around nearly 25 to 30 in 2022, decreasing in 23 and 24. And what is bringing us our attention is how the number of tests, and basically where we have detection of high pathogen influenza, came up in 2025, 2 months in 25, and we have a larger number of animals that have been tested positive. We don't know exactly what it means. It could be more awareness from the state or the states in the area, and we are receiving a large number of samples. That's why we cannot make an assumption that there is an increase of the number of basically number of cases or high transmission, high pathogen influenza, but we're seeing an elevated number so far. So in the next slide, I'm going to show you some of the animals that tested positive so far. Can we move to the next slide, please? Well, this is basically this is the overall data and the kind of animals that we test so far. In 2022 to 2024, we were not basically doing this test in domestic farm animals. Just in the year 2024 to 2025, that's basically when we started testing milk from cows, because the detection of animals, not only in the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma region, but also widespread now to several dairy farms across the country. So what you see over here is basically the species affected by avian influenza. Backyard and domestic birds, ducks, chickens, guinea chickens or guinea fowl, turkeys. We have detected wild birds, so basically we have a connection with the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, testing some of the animals that they find in the forest or they found dead somewhere. So, and we are working in close connection with the Department of Public Health on testing cats. Cats are at risk of this disease, mainly because they can be in contact with, or cats that can be in contact with farm animals, basically dairy cows. And obviously, we have detected these in some non-domestic or wild mammals. We detected this in red fox in 2023, and more recently, in 2025, we detected in a bobcat. So we assume that, as Dr. Morgan was saying before, not only is in wild birds, but also can be, there is a chance or there is a risk of a spillover into wild mammals. So in a sense, we're a testing lab. We are very active working with pathogen influenza, particularly in 2025. We have received samples almost daily. And we believe that there is more awareness of what is going on, the risk of the disease. Most likely that's why we are testing more animals right now. But basically, we have seen a significant increase in the number of samples. There is a question. Most of these animals, as far as I know, are animals that either were found dead, basically wild animals are either found dead, or in some cases may have some sort of neurological signs of the disease. That's what we have seen in wild animals. But we can go and basically give more details about this in the question and answer section. So that's all for me. Thank you very much for having, and anytime that you may have a question, please look us in the CBNDL website and ask the questions, and we will try to answer the best that we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rosati. And now we're going to hear from Dr. Lisa Anderson, who's the Assistant Director of Infectious Disease with the Connecticut Department of Public Health. So, Dr. Anderson, whenever you are ready.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm here to give you a human health update regarding the highly pathogenic avian influenza here in Connecticut. Next slide, please. So we're going to go over very briefly a little bit of background. Dr. Morgan covered that quite well already, and then we'll get into more about the human illnesses, the symptoms, and what you can do to prevent yourself from getting sick. Next slide, please. As Dr. Morgan already pointed out quite well, this has been spread via waterfowl, via migratory flyways. It originally started over in Europe in 2020 and made its way over to North America in 2021 and to the United States in 2022. During that time, there were also some dead-end infection in mammals, as we've already pointed out, in reference to like foxes, bobcats, and next slide, please. This slide was included with more background to demonstrate the current status in the US of infections in the poultry flocks. The US map there is the infections that have been detected in the US in the period of January of 2025. But all states in the US have been affected since February of 2022. I'm going to let you read the rest of this on your own so I can do a little catch up on time here. So next slide, please. And now we get to our dairy farms. It wasn't until March of last year, 2024, that we had the first detection of highly pathogenic avian influenza, or H5N1, in dairy cattle in Texas who had an infection of their udders called mastitis. The infection has since spread to 17 states and 970 herds. And again, I'll let you catch up on this. We're going to catch up on time. Next slide. Because here's really what I'm here to talk to you about is the human cases here in the US. Since February of 2024, there have been 70 confirmed cases in humans, with 1 death in Louisiana and 2 hospitalizations due to severe illness. These cases have been linked to a combination of exposure to infected dairy cattle or infected poultry, whether that be a commercial poultry operation or a backyard flock, and the culling activities associated with those infections. We've had 3 that they were unable to detect, to trace back to a source. But the great news for us is there remains no human-to-human transmission to date, and we've had no human cases here in Connecticut. What's also good for us is the majority of the cases, again, we've only had 70 confirmed with only 1 death and 2 hospitalizations. So that leaves us with 67, which have been mild symptoms. It's symptoms of the flu, which we're going to go over a little bit more in depth. But what's a little more different about this one, we're seeing conjunctivitis. That's a redness and itching of the lining of the eyes, which has been a much more predominant symptom of the H5N1 infections than the typical seasonal flu infections. Also, we get respiratory symptoms, and fever seems to be also more prevalent with this infection. Why is all this important? Because we want to prevent as many infections as we can so the virus doesn't have a chance to combine with other viruses or have the chance to mutate into another form that can then more easily infect humans, which then changes a lot of things for us, and we just don't want to get there. Next slide. So here we are going to go over some symptoms here. Again, the fever, cough, sore throat. If you've ever had flu before, you're going to recognize these symptoms. Muscle aches, you can have some shortness of breath associated with the respiratory symptoms. And again, the eye redness, which is the conjunctivitis I just talked about a minute ago. Some less seen symptoms also are headaches, chills, runny, stuffy nose, and occasionally some diarrhea, nausea, or vomiting. From the time of exposure, usually takes 1 to 2 days to start developing the itchy, red, watery eyes, and about anywhere from 2 to 7 days to develop the respiratory symptoms. Next slide. So what are you going to do if you get sick? Well, think back to COVID a little bit because it's really similar. If you're getting sick and having symptoms, stay home, isolate away from others until you're able to arrange to get tested and determine where you're going from there, and then work on feeling better. So obviously you contact your healthcare provider. It's better if you do that in advance and give them a little history of why you're concerned that you might have avian influenza. They're going to want to know a little bit more about your history so they can arrange for testing that gets you taken care of, but doesn't unnecessarily expose some other people. They might want to come out to the car and swab you like they did in COVID rather than have you come inside. And just call ahead and they'll be happy to arrange that for you. The swabs are very similar because they could swab your nose, your throat. And if you're having eye symptoms, they'll also want to collect a sample from your eye, which just is a very gentle swab right inside your eyelid. Not a big deal. And then depending on the results of those tests, the provider will make a determination of whether they're going to start you on medication, an antiviral medication, such as Tamiflu. If they're concerned enough about your history, they may start on you right there while we're waiting for the results to come back. Next slide. So what are we going to do so we don't have to go to the doctor and get tested? Well, good hygiene practices are where it's at. When your mother told you to wash your hands, it's still a really good thing to do. Because you're washing your hands with soap and water, you're getting all of the debris and possible virus you may have picked up off your hands after having contact with potentially infected animals, whether that be poultry or dairy. And if you have children, because I know that was one of the concerns that was brought up in some of the pre-questions that were submitted, children should be supervised for their hand washing to make sure that they are not accidentally contaminating themselves and possibly infecting themselves. We don't recommend that children under 5 be taking care of animals that might be infected because of their immune systems aren't as fully developed, as well as individuals 65 years of age or older, or those who may have some medical condition which compromises their immune system. That includes some medications that they may be taking because their systems can't fight off the virus as effectively as somebody's immune system who's functioning well. What are you going to do if you don't have soap and water available? Go back to your hand sanitizers, and then when you can get to a sink, then go ahead and use the soap and water. Okay, Dr. Morgan already had talked a little bit about biosecurity, but for people who are taking care of an poultry flock or substitute dairy, if you happen to be taking care of dairy cattle, make sure that you're cleaning any equipment that you use outside. You don't want to bring that inside. And if you're going on to infected animals, we'll talk about that on the next slide. So I'm not forgetting about you here, but you also don't want to be having poultry living in your house right now. And actually, I know a few people who do have pet chickens, and there's nothing wrong with that. But right now, that might not be the best place for them and you to commingle. So you might want to consider a different living arrangement for them. Now, what about poultry that has been infected? Well, if eggs or meat come to market from an infected animal, the good news for us is cooking that thoroughly to an internal temperature of 165 does effectively kill the virus. But this is why staying away from the raw materials and preventing cross-contamination in your kitchen when you're cooking is very important at this time. We would also recommend staying away from raw milk at this time because it hasn't gone through the pasteurization process that would kill the virus. So if you're drinking raw milk that came from an infected dairy cow, you are at risk of contracting the virus. Next slide. So like I alluded to, if you're working with sick animals, we want to have you using appropriate personal protective equipment or PPE. But we also want to make sure that you've contacted your veterinarian to have them come out and evaluate your animals. And if you're going to go into the area, you want to have your personal protective equipment in a nice clean area where you can suit up, go into the environment, interact with what you need to do with the animals, come back out preferably into a different area to then take your personal protective equipment off that has now been exposed to that environment, to do that safely and don't have them intermixed. And when you come out of that environment, we don't want you going back to your house to take it off. We want to keep that out of your house. So it's important to have a separate area to do that. And for this particular picture, we apologize, but we couldn't find an appropriate picture for you all that was in coveralls instead of a Tyvek bunny suit. So please substitute coveralls for the Tyvek bunny suit. Because what we're trying to do is keep you covered. So whether it be splashes or dust or fecal material, so that you don't be taking that home with you. The boots, the gloves, the goggles, the respiratory mask. So let's go on to the next slide so I can explain a couple of things about why it's important to wear this personal protective equipment. Why are we suggesting these particular things? We want to keep the virus from getting into areas where it can infect you. Your eyes, your nose, into your respiratory system, your mouth, your mucous membranes areas. That's why we need to keep those areas covered and protected when you're working with a sick animal. And as humans, we have a habit of our hands touching our face a lot without us knowing about it, whether it be to get a scratch an itch, rub your eyes, rub your nose. We don't want you doing that if your hands are dirty, and then you can potentially infect yourself with the virus. So that's why we recommend all of this equipment, from the coveralls to the boots, the gloves, the goggles, the respirator. It's all to protect you from getting the virus. Next slide. And imagine this, there's an order suggested in how you do this to also help keep you protected. So when you're taking all of your stuff off, clean and disinfect your boots, take them off. Take off your coveralls. And if they're disposable, place them in a bag to be disposed of. If they're supposed to be laundered, get them in an appropriate container to be taken to a laundry. Don't just walk in your house with them without them in a separate bag. Hopefully you can actually launder them away from your actual residence. Then it's important. Now you're taking off your gloves. Now you're going to wash your hands in soap and water before you touch your face to take off your goggles and your respirator. Because now you got clean hands, even though you're going to be touching dirty things. You don't want dirty hands to then get in and then possibly transfer, like we were just talking about, because we touch our faces a lot. And after you take off the goggles and the respirator, you wash your hands with soap and water again. That's one of the best routines you can do to help prevent yourself from getting sick when you're taking care of sick animals. Next page. So in summary, key things to think about if you've been exposed. Again, the majority of cases have been associated with working with infected dairy, cattle, or poultry facilities. Most of those infections have been mild, only 1 death and 2 hospitalizations who have recovered. Causes a variety of illnesses from very mild, which is the majority of what we're having now, to occasionally severe. If you have been exposed, we are going to be in touch with you to monitor you for symptoms for 10 days following your last exposure to infected animals. So if you're still caring for an infected herd of dairy cattle, because you still have to milk them, we're going to be following you for a while they're resolving their infection, because it's going to be 10 days from your last infection, your last exposure. I'm sorry, I misspoke there. 10 days of your last exposure to the infected animals. Not so much a issue with the poultry flocks because of the culling that is required. And if you develop symptoms during your monitoring period, then we will arrange for you to be tested and go down the rest of that pathway. It's just not something we've had to do here in Connecticut yet. We're fully prepared for it with a plan. We just haven't had to use the plan. We'd like to keep it that way. And should you develop symptoms, again, a healthcare provider will discuss whether it would be appropriate to start antivirals for you or not. Next slide. Here, we've listed a bunch of resources for you, similar to what Dr. Morgan did throughout her presentation, that can give you more information on avian influenza, what to do if you feel sick, more about personal protective equipment, and more about each of the animals that are affected right now. And that's all for us right now, folks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anderson. And like we said before, you will all have access to these links that are shared throughout the slideshow, because the slides will be made available along with the recording. So up next, we have Sarah Thomas, who is an assistant extension educator, One Health educator with UConn Extension, and she's going to talk briefly on opportunities with us at UConn Extension. So Sarah, if you don't mind taking it away.
Excellent. Thank you, Mackenzie, and thank you to our co-presenters today. So as Mackenzie mentioned, we are looking to share some resources and opportunities for you to learn more about HPAI and how you can implement some preventative practices within your own operations and households to keep your families and your farms safe. So UConn Extension is situated in the College of Agriculture, Health, and Natural Resources here at the University of Connecticut. And we are the outreach arm of the university. So we work with people to connect them with resources and research in order to improve their personal and professional lives. So we have many programs situated within UConn Extension. The two that are germane to our conversation today are the UConn Extension Diversified Livestock Program, facilitated by Mackenzie White, that focuses on livestock management and economic development, and the UConn Extension One Health Program, which is a new program for our department and system that's focusing on optimizing health within human, animal, plant, and environmental spheres. So our websites are there. We'll also have some contact information that we will share with you as well. So we have 2 upcoming events focused on farm biosecurity, and Drs. Anderson and Morgan did a great job explaining that. But just as a recap, biosecurity focuses on minimizing the transmission of diseases between and within groups of animals and people. So if you're interested in learning more about keeping your flock and your family safe from avian influenza, this is a really great resource for you. We will be at the New London County Extension Center on Thursday, March 20th at 6 p.m. in Norwich. And then on March 22nd, we'll be in Torrington at the Litchfield County Extension Center. And this opportunity is open to operations of all sizes. This includes families, 4-Hers, hobbyists, commercial producers. So if you are interested, please feel free to scan that QR code to register, and Mackenzie will be sharing more information about this event, presumably the flyer, as she shares the other resources that are associated with this presentation. And so in addition to identifying some practical recommendations that you can implement within your own operation or your hobby operation, we'll also be creating individualized biosecurity plans. We also have a host of resources on the UConn Extension website linked in this QR code and this link here, focused on a wide variety of different topics. Some to note that are related to HPAI would be, does bird flu affect my food? Crisis communication planning for agritourism operations, developing a biosecurity plan for your livestock or poultry operation, and then learning more about One Health. If you are interested in contacting us, you can use the Ask UConn extension tool that is hosted on our website. That is linked in the QR code here. You can also email us at livestock@uconn.edu, onehealth@uconn.edu, and we also have a social media presence. So you can look up UConn Extension on Facebook and Instagram. We are here to be a resource to serve the needs that you have. So please don't hesitate to reach out. We are happy to answer any questions or provide any specific resources or events in collaboration with the needs that you observe within your communities as well. Thank you, Mackenzie.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah, for presenting that. And thank you so much to all of our presenters today. So Dr. Morgan actually has been answering some questions throughout the chat. However, feel free to continue to drop questions in the chat box. We can answer those. However, if for some reason you can't figure out how to submit a question through the chat, please just either raise your hand or maybe come off mute, and we can answer those since we have about 13 minutes to answer questions. So, all right, so oh, here they all come now. Okay, so there's a question that's probably going to be for Dr. Morgan. Why isn't there a more rigorous vaccination program for poultry? I don't know, Dr. Morgan, if you want to come off mute quick.
So vaccination in poultry is highly controversial. There is a link to a paper in my presentation that talks about vaccination in poultry. And the problem with the vaccines now is that if we were to vaccinate a chicken and then to test the chicken for high-path avian influenza, there's no way to tell the difference whether the bird is sick due to high-path avian influenza or simply has antibodies to the vaccine of itself. More work needs to be done on the vaccines. Plum Island has done work with foot and mouth vaccines, being able to make what's called a DIVA vaccine, which actually has an additional marker that when you do vaccinate these animals, you can absolutely tell whether that animal has been vaccinated or whether that animal actually has the original disease. That technology has not been yet accomplished with the poultry vaccines that we have now. Chicken immunity systems are quite different than mammal immunity systems. And so there's just a lot more work that needs to be done in order to have an efficacious vaccine program here in the United States.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Morgan. So it looks like Aaron and Jared, you guys raised your hands from Steadfast. If you want to come off mute and ask your question.
Sure. Thank you. I just have a few kind of short questions to kind of determine what the long play here is for avian influenza, because to us, when we're dealing with pasture raised and free range poultry, which is what the market wants, but it also puts us at high risk. I could have all the biosecurity in the world, but I don't sleep very well at night, especially during the peak of the season. But do we see that although dairy cows are carrying it and we pasteurize milk, and so we're not worried about it, and the dairy cows are surviving, can they shed the virus and pass it back to birds?
Good question, Dr. Morgan. I'm going to turn it to you again.
No.
Great.
The cattle are a dead end host, as you heard from Dr. Anderson. If the symptoms of high path avian influenza in cattle is relatively mild, for the cases that have gone from dairy cows to humans, again, the most noticeable symptom in the humans has been the conjunctivitis, which is the reddening and itching of the eyes. There have been no cases of reverse transmission from humans back to the animals in themselves.
And so and that's good that they're not going backwards from cattle to poultry, but can wild birds pass it on to their young while they're breeding?
High path avian influenza in the birds is passed through their feces. And so there is a reasonable risk, of course, depending upon the shedding level of the bird where they nest. Again, there needs to be more work in order to say yes or no definitively. And it's wildlife. And so ultimately, as humans, we don't have a whole lot of control over what wildlife does. But as humans protecting our own livestock, as in the chat, we can talk about putting roofs or bird netting, making sure that there's no wild bird feces or no interaction of domestic stock. Now we'll talk about cattle and birds with any kind of wild waterfowl.
So is it reasonable to say migrating birds flying over a pen that has netting over top, that they're not going to have droppings in mid-flight?
I would love to say that you would be 100% protected, but as a matter of fact, here in Connecticut, as I said, we've had 3 outbreaks. 2 of those outbreaks were definitely due to mallards and water. The 3rd outbreak was a farm on top of a hill that unfortunately was directly under the migratory path. And though they had chicken wire or bird netting over their flocks, feces did end up falling through the holes of that wire. And unfortunately, their ducks contracted high path avian influenza. And so while we always want to say 100%, it's intermingling of waterfowl on water with domestics. This particular case pointed out that I guess a target of opportunity, that even as they fly, these birds do have natural processes that occur during their flights. And again, we have seen birds die in flight and drop right to the ground. So again, there's solid roofing or keeping your birds in during, dusk and dawn are the major migratory times. There are no guarantees that we'll be able to absolutely protect our domestic animals from high path avian influenza being carried in the wild waterfowl species.
And so in closing, and then I'll yield back to the group. I appreciate the time. It seems like we're in reactive clean up the mess mode, and we're not stopping the issue. We're just stopping the spread at the farmer's expense. And from somebody who raises tens of thousands of poultry, runs a USDA inspected slaughter facility, and has biosecurity up the yin yang. It's like I feel I still can't sleep at night. And one bird, one mistake, I could do nothing wrong. And yeah, my health isn't affected, but my pocket is. And it's just it's very unsettling to invest my life in poultry and it could go away just because a bird took a wrong turn.
I understand your concerns. Unfortunately, I don't have any information or observation or comments to make.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan, and thank you, Jared, for those questions. So we're just going to turn back to the chat. Real quick, a lot of folks are asking, do we anticipate poultry being included in fairs this year? Or also, when will that kind of decision be made on whether or not poultry will be allowed to have shows or have fairs? I know, Dr. Morgan, I think that's ends up being a Department of Agriculture decision. Can you provide any information on that?
As far as at this particular point, we are not going to limit poultry and or ducks, because I have heard that ducks are also go to the fairs for being judged. There's a very strict testing regimen in order to take chickens to the fairs. We are working on whether do we need the same for the domestic ducks. Again, as long as owners are doing the very best of biosecurity to keep the domestics away from the wildlife, we don't see any reason at this particular moment, short of we identify all the chickens and the ducks that are at fairs for the traceability. But we are depending, and that's why this webinar is taking place in front of the fair season, that it's up to you, all of the flock owners, to do the very best you can to protect your flocks, to ensure that they do not contract high-path avian influenza, so that we can have a productive and a good summer season of agricultural fairs.
Okay. The other back to the chat. So are culled flocks being tested? I'm assuming what you mean, the ones that were depopulated, they were all tested prior to being depopulated. Is that correct, Dr. Morgan? I hope I answered that question correctly for that person.
Correct. So for here in Connecticut, all the flocks were depopulated. The fact that we had the index cases that were non-negative HPAI detected, it's automatically assumed that those animals have commingling, and therefore there's no reason to waste the very valuable resources of our laboratories. And Dr. Rosati will chime in on that it's very expensive to test each and every bird. So testing cold birds, in essence, is a waste of time, money, and resources that could be used for many other flocks and flock owners.
Okay. Somebody asked about specific shoe wash to use. We can send resources out for that after the webinar, so we can send a couple different options for all you who own poultry. Just trying to move through since we only have about 2 minutes left. Regarding the Atlantic flyway, are there certain times of the year that provide non-active periods for grazing birds? I don't know if Dr. Morgan, you want to.
I heard. Well, the non-active migratory times are when the wild animals are nesting and bringing up their young. And it's very unlikely during those times that the wild animals are going to have any or want to have any interaction with domestics at that time. And so if that were to be considered your quiet time, I guess that's what it would be. Does that make sense?
What period of time would we say month to month are those nesting periods?
I am absolutely certain that, and for time, is that a fantastic Google search will give you the nesting times of all of our New England birds in a speedy and concise listing, rather than take up time from other questions here.
So it looks like, let's see, we're gonna go back up to this question. So we're running out of time. Some people have answered some other questions. Someone had asked, is there a certain amount of time between testing that should be done, or only if birds are sick? Like, is there any way to be preventative in testing measures? So I'm not sure if Dr. Morgan, you want to touch upon the testing that's done on behalf of Department of Ag.
The Department of Agriculture will not test healthy birds.
Okay.
Again, the resources, our laboratory resources are limited and very valuable.
Okay. So with that, I'm sorry to kind of cut us off right at 1:30. However, we will be saving the chat and we'll be responding directly to folks' questions afterwards. Like I said, we have recorded it for today. And also we will send any helpful resources out to you all afterwards.